Now, President Trump's niece has been going to war with Donald Trump. Her first shot comes in the form of a book called Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. So, not exactly a subtle title there. She's going hard against the Trump family. Now, in this book, of course, she details the very messed up internal fighting within the family. A description posted by publisher Simon and Schuster said she explains how specific events and general family patterns created the damaged man who currently occupies the Oval Office, including the strange and harmful relationship between Fred Trump and his two oldest sons, Fred Jr. and Donald. Mary Trump alone can recount this fascinating, unnerving saga, not just because of her insider perspective, but also because she's the only Trump willing to tell the truth about one of the world's most powerful and dysfunctional families. So that's interesting because, look, we know some of these stories already. Okay. Uh, what was interesting, what we didn't know before, is how the Trump family was basically lying, cheating, and perpetrating tax fraud. So that actually came from Mary Trump leaking to the press. So I'm kind of curious if that would be the only gigantic revelation, at least when it comes to criminal doings, or if she's got more inside the book. I don't know. I mean, again, she did go to the New York Times with that, but I don't know if she's like the rest of the Trump family. It certainly doesn't seem like she is. So she probably said, well, that's the biggest thing that I have. It's criminal. Obviously, I've got to go to somebody about it. And I'm going to go to the New York Times. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe she didn't like blow her wad on just that. And she's got more inside this book. Who knows? Right? That said, we do know some of the stuff that's already happened. And from, for example, other stories. We had other stories of, for example, Mary Trump's son, William's got cerebral palsy. And when Fred Trump III had sued on behalf of Mary Trump and himself in order to get piece of that inheritance from their father, Fred Sr., well, I'm sorry, Fred Jr. Fred Sr. It had Alzheimer's, and it was his fortune that everyone was fighting over. Fred Jr. had died from alcoholism back in the, I believe, early 80s. And then some of that inheritance was supposed to go to Fred the Third and Mary Trump. So during that nasty fight within the family for Fred Sr.'s money, Donald Trump decides to cut off medical care for the child with cerebral palsy because Fred Trump III sued for his part of the inheritance. And so it's a really difficult, like, kind of story. There's a lot to this, right? And so that's what we know. Again, we've already seen that. Now there's more, right? And so, for example, some of the treatment is supposed to of Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump Sr., when he was having Alzheimer's, is supposed to be part of this story as well. And so apparently he was very dismissive and derisive of his own father as he was suffering from Alzheimer's, and of course had gotten him to sign away a lot of the fortune to Donald Trump himself. And so look, this is after, of course, his father, who wasn't exactly a great person to begin with, right, had chosen Donald as his favorite son and would continue to bail him out of basically any situation. I mean, every time he went bankrupt, and he went bankrupt a lot, his father would be there to save him and would probably call him a dummy and, oh, you're so dumb, you're so stupid, how could you lose all that money, but would still bail him out. And so it's kind of amazing to hear that that Donald Trump was, of course, really derisive, dismissive of his father, even after being bailed out so many times by him. It just kind of shows you the character of who Donald Trump is. And so she's written this, go back to Mary Trump here. She wrote this tell-all book Is it going to have salacious stuff in it? Probably. Scandalous? Absolutely. So she's spilling all that tea. All that tea. And the timing, it's not a surprise. It's election year. And so it's very, very clear that she does not want Donald Trump to become president once again. So I think she had this timing planned, and she can't stand her uncle. And I understand why. I mean, look, he destroyed the Trump name in the public eye. Not that the Trumps were that good of a family to begin with, but I mean, for example, Fred Sr., as I mentioned, not a good person. He was incredibly racist. But before then, Donald Trump himself, yes, he was a laughingstock, right? But the Trump name was enough for people to still make money on, where they would contract these, basically they would rent out the name to these hotels. I mean, you stick Trump on a hotel back in the 1990s and 1980s, everybody's like, oh my God, that's fancy. Oh, yes, well, that adds a great name to us. You slap one on now, everybody's going to run because there's literally roaches, right? And bed bugs in some of these Trump hotels, or at least it was reported that it was bed bugs. And so, nonetheless, even though Donald back in the 90s and 2000s, was a bit of a laughingstock, he still was able to be rehabilitated by The Apprentice, right? That rehabbed his image as somebody who might actually be a successful person. But now you can't rehab this. We see who Donald Trump is. Once he's out of office, what is he going to do? He can't hide his terrible, gross, and incompetent. You can't hide those things from the American public anymore. Everybody knows exactly who he is. And so he's going to spend the rest of his life basically pandering to what little amount of people are left that actually do like him still. But for anybody else that's a Trump, well, that's terrible. Now imagine going through life now as a Trump and being compared to that guy. So no, it's a disaster. And so, of course, Mary comes out and says, I don't want to be affiliated with that. I don't want to be associated with that. I hate this guy. He screwed our family over. We had to take him to court. No way am I going to be associated with this man. No way at all. And so that makes sense. Now, in response to this, of course, Donald Trump decides, well, I'm going to sue. I'm going to consider a lawsuit. According to two people familiar with the situation, Trump has told people close to him that he's getting lawyers to look into the Mary Trump matter to explore what could be done in the way of legal retribution, or at least a threat, likely in the form of a cease and desist letter. This is according to journalists Asawan Subsang and Lachlan Cartwright. One of the sources with knowledge of the situation said that in the past couple of days, the president appeared irked by the news of her book, and at one point mentioned that Mary had signed an NDA years ago. Quote, Mary Trump signed an NDA following a 2001 settlement after litigation disputing Fred Trump's estate, according to people familiar with the matter. So she did sign that NDA. Well, it appears that she broke that. I mean, again, she leaked to the New York Times, and that wasn't enough, right? I mean, you would think that saying, here's evidence that the Trump family, including the president of the United States, perpetrated tax fraud. Do something with that. Nobody did. And I think that was her first attempt, right? Now she's like, all right, fuck it. I don't care. I'm going to break the NDA. I'm about to ruin this man's whole career. And that's what that is, right? I'm about to ruin this man's whole career. Now, is that going to happen? Obviously not. Again, there are going to be people that are going to stay with Trump no matter what. But as far as the American people, look, I've been talking about this for a while. New poll out from Michigan. Trump not doing so well. Trump won Michigan in 2016. He's forecasted to lose Michigan by double digits. Now, look, I get it, right? It polls not exactly accurate. I get that, right? But I do think this time America is so sick and tired of the disaster that is Donald Trump Like, nobody was prepared for the disaster of this magnitude. And so, not only that, but Joe Biden's not my choice. I'll be honest with you, he is not my choice whatsoever. I don't think he was most people's choice. But at this point, a crusty ham sandwich can beat Donald Trump. And you ain't getting any crustier than Joe Biden at this point. So, look, I think he is on his way out. I don't think he's going to get another term. You would have asked me before coronavirus, before the economic recession, I'd have said he had a pretty good chance. He had a really good chance, especially if you nominate somebody like Joe Biden. But things have changed. The situation is different than it was before. And now, of course, the chickens for Trump are coming home to roost. And that also includes much more salacious books coming out. You've got John Bolton's book. His support's starting to break. It really is starting to break. And expect more. Expect more. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.